welcome back. So, we're getting back into the swing of things. I did see a question from Austin. Can there be morally good vampires? How do you play them given their restrictions? Can you define the restrictions a little bit more? So, I was actually talking to the group offline about one of my other ideas that I'm planning on doing actually before my Big Victor game. I am wanting to do a film noir vampire one-shot where the vampires are actually good. They are like civilized people. They've been integrated in human society. There are blood banks and things where they can get blood where they're not actually... And actually the thought of drinking someone's blood is disgusting to them. But... and it's kind of funny because I've never seen True Blood, but I was talking about this. So there is some disease that the humans get because they keep going down their very destructive path, which is what we're doing right now. But they continue to go down their very destructive path, and a virus is kind of released that makes them act a little crazy. And it's kind of like functional zombies, I guess would be the best way to put it, where they're not actual zombies. They still have full thought, but they're kind of just hyped up on adrenaline, and they've been more aggressive, so whatever they're carrying can actually kills the vampires. So then the players are playing like almost detectives like and trying to find out the root of this virus to try to put it out so then the vampires aren't extinct.
To the point of are there good vampires, the two examples that I would throw out immediately would be Blade.
Yes.
And Alucard from Castlevania.
Yeah. Well, right now he's going to be bad.
Aren't they both
That's
anti-heroes though?
Hmm?
Aren't they both anti-heroes? Like the kind of
okay, fine, but I mean,
yeah,
kind of, but still.
Okay, so well, in my setting, actually, it's kind of fun. So in this, like, one of the things that my players can find in this setting this part of the continent is that one of them is disgruntled, like with the others, and not in a way of like, oh, they're stronger than me. Like, he actually doesn't care about that. He's actually in love with one of like these human villagers, because they are each in charge of like a town. Like, they are essentially the councilman for that town, each one. And he's actually fairly compassionate to his village. Yeah, it's still not great because they're still all vampires, but he actually does not feed on humans. He actually feeds on livestock. No, he is not as strong for it, but because like there's part of his humanity that is essentially retained, or he's just really realized that because they have the power doesn't mean that they should. And so like, and it's because of the relationships he's developed. But like playing that's kind of a fun thing because yeah, like if he gets starved, like he's not going to be able to control that.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing to throw in there. Like, yeah, he's not as strong because he's not feeding on what he's supposed to, but...
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because, like, I also thought about the same thing. Like, you want to drink human blood because it gives you more, right? But we go and donate blood all the time. If, you know, you can mark it on your driver's license. If I die, you can take all my bits, right? Like, so there was... a certain acts that were put into the world for that, so like someone dies, but the problem is the virus, human, you don't know you have it as a human, so now you have tainted blood and you have tainted bits that vampires are getting, and you know they're trying to find out what the cause is. Just because I keep saying bits.
Well, I mean, let's be real. It's not going to taste the same over ice as it would room temperature.
It's
or
true.
body temperature.
This is true. I mean, cold brew versus. I mean,
but
exactly.
the point is though is if you grew up in a world where you became a vampire and the nature you didn't ever drink warm blood, you wouldn't know that. But you're kind of, I mean, it's kind of a spoiler because it gets to a point where a vampire does accidentally bite someone and he's like, what is this? Like, then it's that realization where the tide starts to shift the other way and it gets a little out of hand, but it's fun.
Here for it.
That sounds awesome.
I mean, I'm so happy because I know that me and Diane are both going to be in that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm getting strong-armed, guys. I'm getting strong-armed.
Please.
If I'm not, then I'm just gonna send a video to Solo, just me crying.
We'll record it and like put like the Sarah McLachlan music and just like flash between us, just like.
There you go.
See, I definitely don't want to burn any bridges because remember that thing was reciprocal, right?
What?
Come bite me. Someone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Because then you guys would just fly over and be like, "Hey, Solo, look, huh?" And then fly away.
I
You had your chance,
going
buddy.
to Transylvania.
Do you all think that it would be interesting to explore the addiction aspect, often seen in other vampire genres?
I plan on it. I mean, yes.
Addiction and like addicted to like the blood or what?
Like
what-
humans drinking vampire blood or vampires drinking human blood?
That happens in things too.
I mean,
I mean, I can see both of them being interesting
Yeah.
to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
What if you what if you mix them together? And
I
it was
mean-
like a cocktail.
I mean, I feel like this has been touched on in a couple different forms, whether it be, the vampires being addicted to blood, or humans being addicted to vampire blood, or it being, humans being addicted to being bitten, or whatever it may be. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of different aspects of it that can be explored.
What would
Yeah.
that be called? That would be weird.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make Eddie make a face.
Well,
No, I thought about that. Like,
It's a real addiction, I swear.
I don't know. I thought it would be kind of cool. Like I don't want to give things away, but like playing with the idea of a person already having had an addictive personality and then be given this new power and this new hunger. How do they deal with that?
Yeah.
For sure.
no, I like that. It's interesting too because we talk about True Blood a lot, and I know I need to go back and watch it or whatever. I've only seen episode 1, so I know what V is, right? So I know that the humans drink it, they get some stuff, and then they get like a little high. I actually don't like that they get some stuff. I think it would be more impactful if it was just like a drug, like a hallucinogenic drug.
I feel like it's
That
more
would-
just a drug. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
it heals them, kind of.
Well, and other things.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it-
Yeah.
well,
Oh yeah.
Well, it's got it, yeah. Without spoiling anything, I mean, it's basically just the notion of the fact that no, I can't really say anything without spoiling anything.
Here's a thought. Here's a thought, and it just came into my brain in this moment. Take Alien, the movie Alien. Take the entire movie and replace the one alien with Dracula. What if in the future we're on some other planet doing some stuff, we brought back some evil thing? And imagine being on a fucking spaceship with some Dracula dude flying around and doing all sorts of crazy
Yeah,
stuff.
man. I'm into it.
Players are gonna hate you.
Well, is that kind of like The Strain?
I haven't seen The Strain.
Oh, it's really good.
Is it?
It's really good.
There's too many good things out there.
I mean, it's like a totally different take on like a vampire type situation, but
What was
It's
that other one with? Was it Josh Hartnett? Right, that was his name. The guy that. He was like in Alaska, and it all goes dark, and the vamps come
Oh,
out.
That was
That was a fun take.
28 days or night.
no. It was.
I don't remember what
Something.
it was called.
I know what you're talking about though. That was I actually liked that because they were in Alaska, right? And it was
Yeah, and they were like super twisted too. Like the vampires weren't. They were like more like the Nosferatu.
30 days of night.
like 30 days.
There
of
you
night.
go.
Yeah.
You know, I like
But
that.
that was an interesting one.
No, I liked that. I liked that movie a lot.
So, Austin just mentioned Among Us Vampire Edition, and I'm so here for it.
Yeah.
Oh, how do we do it? How do we do
I have no idea, but I want to see it happen.
All we need to do is just email the Among Us people and just change the killing animations to just biting them in the neck, and then I'd be happy.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, at that point, you're basically just playing a Mafia game.
That's
yeah.
fair. God, I love Mafia games. So, okay. There's so many crazy things are flying around in my head right now because we can talk about all these crazy vampire movies and
Well,
things and
I've
Dusk
got one
Till
for
Dawn
you.
and all those things. Yes.
You have vampires that you've made in games and let people
Mm-hmm.
play. So what was it? How did you keep that from being too OP?
I haven't yet. Well, the reason why it worked.
Have you seen his homebrew like vampire race? It's
I mean,
crazy.
we played with Shaggy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, anybody who's any of my campaigns, you can check it out. So I made a race vampire, and then I made a subclass or a class vampire, which essentially is just a warlock subclass. There's still a lot of balancing to go, and I've just spent a lot of time looking online to research and find things. And I have taken some things from there, but they're all way too unbalanced. And I can share my Victor monster sheet too. It's hard because there's a lot of really cool things, and as far as a player playing a vampire, it becomes a lot more challenging because, like, you know, Tallulah had, like, passive perception of, like, 30 or something ridiculous. But it's hard to say, though, but it's still fun, though. But the characters themselves were very OP as well, so it kind of fit. But I am looking to refine that, especially for my one-shot thing. But I'm refining it to a point because my one-shots are not necessarily combat-based. They are more role-play based. Mm-hmm. And I think my dice system would be a lot more like the Genesis dice system. So if you play the Star Wars game with Lizzie or anything like that, it would be more like that, where you'd have some abilities you can do. And it's like, I do some stuff and you do some stuff, and whoever has more successes wins.
Yeah,
and that's kind of it.
The Masquerade is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a lot more role-play driven. It's not battle maps and all that stuff.
Right.
It's because you can only do like 3 things, right? You can fly around and wrestle, you can throw something, or you can bite somebody. Like, that's all you can do.
There are other things.
Well, this isn't a team up.
Looking at the Vampire the Masquerade, there are lots of things that they can do. If you have looked at some.
Oh, that's what you meant. Okay.
Yeah.
My mind
For once, I came out. Okay, I'm not gonna say that either because my mind's in the gutter, and I would have laughed at.
I'm not gonna fight you. You're like, all right.
Yeah. Twist my arm, why don't you? No, like looking through their abilities and stuff. Like, I'm not like, because that's something I've always wanted to do, never gotten to, and so looking through that, it has been really interesting. Because some of the things they can do, some of the origins of some of these vampire clans is kind of really cool. Like a semi-warlocky one, and they mess with like magic and stuff. I'm intrigued and
necromancy.
Yeah. I was about to say, then you have like mobsters that do necromancy, and I'm like, why not? That's great. Yeah. Necromantic mobsters.
Right up my alley.
It's just good. Good RP.
Yep, it's good. It's good.
So
and then artsy hipster vampires.
I like that. So we have about a half hour left, so we still have plenty of time. Are there any other questions you all have for one another, for something that you've seen them do in a game? Questions for me, for Victor, and for other things, or anybody else in the chat? If you have any more questions, make sure you post those in the chat so we can see it.
Yeah, do that.
Do it. Trying to think. I was thinking of something, and then our minds jumped, and here's
a question.
I got distracted.
Why are vampires, in pop culture anyway, addicted to sex?
Because honestly, I wrote a paper on that in high school.
Love to hear your thoughts.
You have the floor.
Because I honestly I think at the end of the day, like it's been over 10 years now. One of my like conclusions essentially is that like it's the nature of vampires and like the blood sucking and everything is a very intimate thing.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just something very there's obviously lots of like fetishizing and other things that it's just a thing, but there's like something about being entranced by this dark, beautiful, mysterious figure, and then this sensual embrace that just completely envelops you, and there's just lots to just that process that is just naturally alluring to most people. And it's kind of hard to say like, oh, like these vampires have to get close enough to drain your blood. And the easiest way is, of course, if you're a consenting, like, yeah, come over here, buddy. Versus like, I'm going to cut your head off and just drink what comes out like a water fountain.
That's way too much work.
I'm just saying, like, one of those is also like, and then there's like this psychological element to it though too. Is like these beings that have existed for thousands of years, they might be lonely.
They want that connection.
Yeah, like there's this moment of like feeling that semblance of connection, and then they're like, "Eh, you're dead." Next.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you take it, down to the more basic levels, even beyond that, I imagine that, the seductive nature to it, you have heart palpitations, the blood flows faster. It's just,
Mhm.
there's just the simple biology of that as well. But I also think Alamore, Armor, God, I say that wrong every single time. Al Armor.
Attaboy.
Made a good point on that as well. There is something that's just very hedonistic about it, where it's
Yeah.
just, there's something, just very
Primal.
alluring and primal and appealing about just, the notion of just that journey and that, desire for
Yeah.
pleasure.
And being, I mean, and then like, I mean, for real though, like, as a dominant person to be dominated, like
Mhm.
that's just a thing.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, it makes a lot of sense with what you're saying
Yeah.
too. Is I don't know if you guys know anything about like hunting or killing boar or anything like that, but if like when I was in Hawaii, the locals would teach me that like when you kill a boar, you want to surprise it and you want to slit its throat immediately. Otherwise, the meat tightens, the body tenses, and when it tenses, the meat doesn't taste as good. So if you think about that in the same thing, what happens when you're being aroused? What happens when you're being excited? You have all these endorphins and things going. So maybe that makes everything taste sweeter, like physiologically.
Endorphins,
Words.
yeah.
There you go.
Mhm. That makes sense. That makes
Like
sense.
well, yeah. I mean,
I'm
that
just
makes
tap dancing
perfect
at this
sense.
point.
I mean, it makes perfect sense.
So thinking about how vampires turn. So there's a lot of different ways it happens. What are the ones that you like, and what are some of the ones you don't like? Like go back way back in the '80s with Jim Carrey's first movie, Once Bitten, where he was bit in the thigh, and then you go to other ones where they're bit in the neck, and there's other. We've talked about different things like you can like is it the location? Is it like some sort of ritual that you're doing, or is it just the fact that you get bit and you're not killed?
I feel like to be turned, you have to be bitten, mostly drained, not totally, and then you drink your biter's blood.
Yep.
Oh.
That's what I've always seen is that you have to consume blood
Mhm.
right after
Yeah.
the fact to
I mean-
get that going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a. I feel like that the amount kind of varies depending on which lore you go off of and stuff like that. But I definitely agree, at least in terms of the fact that there has to be some sort of an exchange
Yeah.
in order for an actual turn to happen. That's actually one of the things that I keep on quoting the exact same series all the time because I freaking love it. But that's one of the differences with, for example, the Helsing series, is that if you just drink from someone and that's it, they usually end up turning into a ghoul. So basically, you end up turning into some sort of a mindless slave.
Yeah.
But if you do the exchange with a true vampire, that's what ends up turning you into a proper fledgling and therefore a vampire.
Well, and then sometimes you get it where you have to like, sleep in a coffin or be buried for the change to.
I think that's the thing, honestly. Like, if we want to talk about things that I'm like over with vampires, freaking it's the coffin. Why do they need to sleep in a freaking box? I know
I
that
think
like
the coffin's cool.
to an extent, but like this idea that if they don't sleep in their coffin with soil from where they're from, like there's some stuff to it. Just I guess it depends on like the kind of vampire you're looking at and what the setting is looking like. Because like after I don't know some of that I'm like I get the protective thing. I don't know. That's the thing. That's my thing. Like
I mean, then you
I
can
get
go
it, you're
with.
dead.
I mean, then you can always go with like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where they're literally demons.
That's also
You want to hear a really weird story?
Oh,
When I was like 15, I convinced my mom to get rid of our minivan and get a hearse because that's just like a normal thing, and it worked. And I drew a heartogram on the hearse because him is my favorite band. And then I had my mom take me to a funeral home, and I wanted to get a casket for my hearse because like what else? What other use are you going to use a hearse for than to have a casket? And they were like, oh, like why are you shopping for a casket? And I told them it was for a music video. It wasn't. It was just for my own pleasure. But
I thought you were about to tell me that you had a bed that was a casket.
no, I never actually ended up getting it, and our hearse blew up. But Yeah.
Well,
It
that's
blew up.
The gasket blew. The head gasket blew, so it
Got
didn't
it.
blow up.
Okay, so it wasn't
Oh.
okay.
I was
That
like,
is
well,
a sign of God.
It's still sad.
Yeah,
still
that is sad.
sorry to derail.
No, I love all of
Screw
this.
coffins.
Right.
Just kidding.
So continuing down that same train of thought before we get to the next topic is, how long do these transformations take? Like, when you think dusk till dawn, they get bit. It's like 5 seconds later. If you go John Carpenter's Vampires, it was like days, and she was like slowly changing and freaking out, and then ended up biting the Baldwin guy, and then he went away. But
I think probably instantaneous is a no-go for me.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
of the exchange. But I kind of like, I don't know, a couple
I
days
say like
or
a
so.
night or two makes sense.
I think to fully realize the powers, maybe a couple days. But yeah, like the transformation, like the moment you regain consciousness from being, like, I feel like there has to be like a dedicated sleep. Like even if you're conscious for the exchange, like I feel like your body's doing some stuff.
Well,
You
because
need
you're
sleep.
dying.
You're going through some
Yeah.
changes.
dying.
Yes.
well,
So when a mommy vampire bites
When
a
a mommy vampire and a daddy vampire love each other a whole lot.
they kill you.
The mom vampire goes and fights a hot person.
wow, and that's how babies are made.
And that's how babies are made.
Not like Twilight.
Wow. Yeah, so it's like the reason why I ask is like during Realms when Tallulah was bit and killed, and then she came back as a vampire. Everyone, it was this long dramatic thing. So she was just out for like a day, right? So she was like in this coma state, and it's a very very like emotional moment. Jess, who played Tallulah, was literally weeping during the break, weeping before. We used to have the clips up on Twitch. I don't know if they're still there or not. But so she's in this room, and her mom leaves the room, and her fiance was there, alone, and no one knew that she was bit by a vampire. And then she wakes up, and she's like, "Oh, you're awake," and they embrace, and then she bites down and kills and drains her fiance to nothing, and her fiance dies. And then she has those powers. So I just had her like kind of be in that coma for a day. But here's the fun part. At some point during the conversations of them trying to figure out what happened to Tallulah and what to do, they got it in their head. I think an NPC was like, I don't know, maybe by the next full moon or something. It was not. It was fake news that they got from Fox News is what they got. So they had it in their head that it was going to be if they could kill Victor or kill somebody by the time that they get to the full moon, then she wouldn't be a vampire anymore, which was total bullshit. But I let them keep thinking that. But what are the thoughts on that, on things like that? Like, I know it's more werewolves are connected to the full moon, but what about vampires being connected to the moon? Or maybe it's the new moon, because there's no moon. That means it's darkest outside.
Yeah, I say
I don't
why
think
not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on your setting and like what you're going for. And I mean, in my setting, there is no cure at all, ever. But there's one. In fact, one of my players is currently they are a blood hunter, and they are from this area that was taken over, and they're very soon going to find their childhood friend lives in the castle. Not happy, but she lives in the castle, and so there's no way she's gonna try, and they're gonna find out there's no way. In a different fantasy setting, I might allow for something like that for adventure's sake and for players' sake, and let them like play with mechanics because that might be a thing, is like maybe I'm not planning on it, but if they come up with some really, depending on what magic and stuff they come across, if they come up with like a really cool solution, that might be one of those DM moments where I go, you know what, maybe.
But like, so them it not turning until the new moon is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know.
So if they get bit right after the new moon, then they potentially have a month to deal
So
with
we're
the fact
kill
that
their host.
vampire, or
So we're going with the zombie approach.
Yeah.
Maybe. Not necessarily a fan of it. That's why it wasn't in my game. But it was just funny because we brought Bo in, who played Ted the Fighter, and he was Hans Velsing, who was kind of a vampire or kind of a vampire hunter undead. There's a whole complicated story with him. But he was working with Travanas, which is really funny. So there's a lot of fun things with that. But it was just really, really funny because in that moment when they're talking to NPCs and Hans Velsing was right there, who was an expert in vampires, and I think it was GW was like, so what? Do we just have to find... oh god, what was Victor's sister's name? Rosalind. Do we have to find Rosalind and kill him?
Right.
And the NPC was like, maybe. And even in that moment, if you go back to the episode, Bo was like, and they looked at Bo, he's like, no, that's ridiculous. Why would you think that? And then they continued to think what they thought. And it was just really funny that like that story beat just stayed there, and they just continued and continued and continued. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Like I like the not instant, but like close.
Like within a day or two.
Like, but my thing is you don't necessarily have to feed on the vampire that bit you, but you have to feed within a certain time period. But that's my thing. But that's not, I don't know. It's really interesting because you can go several different ways. Like if you are one of the vampire lords, like one of like the pure bloodlines, then maybe you would do that to purify the bloodline. If you were just creating a vampire to create a vampire, and you didn't care about that person, so maybe if that person who was bit didn't bite the host but bit just somebody else, you would be a weaker version than you could have been if you would have fed on your actual host. Or maybe the connection isn't there because you didn't feed on your host.
That's one of the reasons why, at least for me, I really always have liked the exchange concept, because the versions of it that I have always liked the most was that when someone is actually being turned, it's a very conscious choice. It's not just I'm turning you for the sake of turning you. It's like, no, there's almost kind of like there's like an intimate bond to a certain way where it's almost kind of like a familial tie. Like, I care about this person, and you know what? I'm going to raise you as my own, because it's almost like having a child in a way.
Oh, stop.
It's another. Well, I was about to say that's another Anne Rice reference of like poor Lestat. Like in the book, it's worse than it was in the movie. In the book, he literally gets turned and then just freaking left, and the guy goes and offs himself. And Lestat is just completely left with this castle and just like, here you go. Bye.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have issues for it though. So
not in the least bit.
No issues at all.
None.
So I'd like to talk about another topic in regards to vampires, whether it's tabletop or just in general. Something that is not as common as maybe it could be, but if you've watched the Dusk Till Dawn TV series, vampires are related to snakes, and their fangs are as such. They are not pointy vampire fangs. They are kind of long, almost like python fangs. Which makes sense because that's what those fangs are built for, are for, injecting poison or, extracting whatever. But if you guys haven't seen it, then I guess we can't talk about it. But that was...
I've seen the original.
I'll have to put it on my list.
I haven't seen the...
Oh yeah, the original, the movie didn't have that. They were just regular vampires. But the TV show was actual... it was very unique. It is very unique. But...
I like that though. That's a fun way to play. Well, in all honesty, that's another way to play with an origin of it and spice it up so then it's not the bat.
Yeah. Well, because I can't remember, but there was... God, I think I saw like one or two episodes of it. It was something like they worshipped this goddess who was a snake or something, and then, she bit somebody who created the first... Like, it was a totally different storyline. Still in the same setting as, still in the same bar, that ridiculous bar. But other than that, being in a crazy bar in Mexico, that was the only thing that was similar to it. But
so instead of blah blah blah, it's hiss hiss hiss.
Yeah, kind of. But it was interesting because they had a very similar thing to like what Blade had, or even Underworld, where they had like a council that would come and they would all have these conversations and they would go back to go doing whatever they did. But let's talk about that since we still have some time. Let's talk about the actual hierarchy of vampires. Take Dracula out of it, right? So like Dracula is in there somewhere in a lot of these lore, like Underworld, whatever, or whatever. But then there's the political or the sociological group that decides what vampires should or shouldn't do.
I mean, there's symbolism even in that though too. Like you've got this the vampires are always wealthy, aristocratic, socially organized,
Mm-hmm.
have like this caste system. I'm just saying, um, it makes them more evil, apparently.
I guess, yeah. They can organizations
Yeah.
are usually evil, I feel like.
Well, I mean, to an extent, I mean, the hierarchy system doesn't necessarily, in and of itself, pertain to evil per se,
No.
but I mean, but it does make it so that they are more efficient at being evil.
It lends itself to, yeah, to going that route though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like it's a means to an end, but it's not necessarily an end all be all. Like this is going to be this way because of this.
Yeah.
If that
Well,
makes any sort of semblance of sense, but
Yeah, I like that.
Well, and see, and then like in game, like the way I have it set up is like I said, they're not all as connected as they think they are. Like there are weaker ones, and there are ones that are swayable or even reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I really like about it is that it's like they have different motives. It's not all just the same. It's not just hello, we are the organization of vampires. It's
Blah, blah,
no,
blah,
it's
blah.
like blah blah blah. No, it's like oh no, we all have very different motivations as to what we're doing in this whole craziness.
Right, like vampires who want to be in the world with the mortals, and vampires who don't, or feel like they're higher or want to be equal. And
I enjoy everything. I enjoy killing people. I'm just insane.
sounds like the clans for Masquerade.
Yeah, that's literally what I was pretty much describing.
Yeah.
Well, that was going back to like that tabletop thing though too. Like that was really fun going through and like looking at like their perspectives of the other clans. I was like,
Yeah.
these people are sassy. I want to be these people. These people have got some great stuff to say about other people.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's super brutal, and I was like, this is gonna be great. This is
There's going to be so much shade.
Yeah, I still need to
man.
go in there and read all the bits. I am so.
Oh, I got
Yeah.
the what is it? What are they called, Eddie? The
The Toreadors?
Thank you.
Toreador, I'm gonna sing it all the time.
You said you weren't going to.
I know I'm not going to. It's going to be so hard.
They see themselves like, since they're like the super sophisticated artsy, the very much the pleasure seeking whatever vampires.
They're the hedonists.
Oh yeah. That's not why I chose them. And they're fun. But like their perspective on like I think, what is it, the other one with the M, the Machiavella.
Oh, the Machiavella, Malkavians. Malkavians.
The Macarenas, their
The Macarenas.
their perspective on them is like, oh, these are super like crazy, shifty, weird,
Literally have
primitive
mental disorders, though.
Yeah, like
They have a what?
Mental disorders.
Oh.
Like that clan, like once you're turned, once you're embraced, which is the term
I
for
love it.
Masquerade, they go crazy. They literally get a form of craziness.
I like that. It's such a what, like the mixing of the blood just
I guess, yeah.
breaks something.
Well, suppose they don't know. I think that's one of the other fun things about that clan is they don't know why they have a tendency.
Yeah.
They have theories, but they don't really know. The Brujas are like really rebellious and resentful towards the hierarchy. Actually, I think is their.
And the Giovannis are neutral.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, we'll use you, and we'll use you.
Well,
Yeah.
it makes sense though, especially with the character that I'm going to be playing and how I was turned. It makes sense that I was Is it Bruja? Yeah.
Bruja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So excited.
I'm gonna be.
How tall is too tall?
How tall are humans? Human. You're a human.
I mean, you could be really tall as a human. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there are ridiculously tall humans.
I kind of imagine him as like Kane from like the WWE.
Oh,
So like
okay.
7'1" maybe. 285.
I was gonna make a Ronin joke, but
No, he'd be bigger than Ronan. And he won't wear sleeves either.
no way.
So, oh my god, I had a really good question. Really good question.
we got sidetracked by sleeves.
We did. It's
Ronan's
like a
fault.
sleeve grenade.
Mostly.
Yeah,
Oh.
clans and hierarchy
Yeah,
and fun.
yeah. So I remember now. So, what are some things that you wish that you could add to a vampire character that you're playing or one you're bringing to your game? So we have our like nice package of things, and every once in a while, someone else will bring something else, either a a weakness or a strength, and it like magnifies. Like Underworld did it really well with a couple different things, right? So like added a couple new variables that hasn't been done before. Snake fangs is also another example of that. But what are some things that you all have wished that you would add to a vampire character?
That's a good question.
That was a really good question.
No.
What would make them better
Or
or
worse.
funner or worse?
Sparkly skin.
No.
No.
Crepe of paper.
Crepe paper.
Crepe of paper.
Creepy paper.
Crepe paper. Glitter. No. Sorry. If you haven't watched What We Do in the Shadows, you're stupid.
Master, it's crepe paper.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a TV show on Hulu, and you should check it out because it's absolutely freaking
really
hilarious.
Yes. I need to watch the show. I've seen the movie. I haven't seen
I
the
love
show
the
yet.
movie too.
Funny. Really
Vladislav the Poker. You can tell where I've been studying my accent for Jinx. It's a thing. No,
I don't know what my answer is.
I would say
Yeah, that's a
one of the-
stumper.
Depending on the origin of the vampire, depending on your setting, one thing I would like to do eventually is because I like to blend stuff, and I really like to blend stuff with shadow stuff. Obviously, Solo hates that. But I would love to play with vampires that would like do the falling in and out of shadow, literally.
Yeah,
Playing-
Victor has that. Victor has Shadow Step and other things like that, where it's like Misty Step, but it's 120 feet, and you just jump into a shadow. And you're over
I
there.
I think
love
monks have that
Shadow
ability.
Step.
Oh yeah, Anna has it.
Anna has it.
Does she- oh,
Future-
she
fu-
does.
Future Anna, villain Anna has it.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Well,
was it you that did that crap?
yeah, I
to
don't
me?
know what level it is, but
I'm watching you bastards. I don't trust none y'all.
you're watching me?
Yes, you have shadow stuff, and Hemian has
Yeah,
a talking
I have-
shadow.
Well, okay, listen. That's why I was asking Hemi all these questions.
Yeah.
It's just
Mm,
whatever.
Well, the sunlight
Yeah, I'm
sensitivity
traumatized
thing.
now.
Yeah, the chat's asking about sunlight sensitivity, and like
Yeah.
in your campaign, you can really just do what I was talking about earlier. Is there some event? Like right now,
yeah.
now, technically vampires could walk around the frigid expanse all day long, and if they were there, you'd all be in trouble any time of day because there's not enough sunlight that comes through that would be painful to them, right? Like I don't see vampires like poof, like they do in some movies. Like there's some movies where they kind of it burns for a while and they can kind of push through it, but then eventually die. Like so, something like that helps. Having campaigns just at night is hard, right? So like if you have a vampire, like we can't go outside now. Oh, we have this special ointment that we can put on your skin, or you wear a big hat, right? And it,
The umbrella.
A parasol, yeah.
Parasol, yeah, exactly.
Like the vampire from Preacher. The show Preacher.
yeah.
Oh,
Cassidy. I loved him.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, then chat was also talking about like removing or swapping out some of the disadvantages that don't really make sense. Stake to the heart, maybe crucifix. Like, really, it's gonna hurt. Come on, like, but it It really depends on the backstory of your vampire, because
it depends on the setting.
Because in some settings, like Dracula was created, by the church, which is why he has this thing with the church. But if he wasn't created by a church, then none of that shit makes any sense. Holy water doesn't make any sense. Crucifix doesn't make sense.
well, that's one of the things that I really like about whenever series or shows or games and stuff like that kind of turn those, for lack of a better way of describing them, stereotypes on their head, where it's like, like you were saying, like with the Transylvania, like stake through the heart, like who wouldn't that kill? Or things like garlic is like, yeah, I never really cared for it, but it's not fatal to me.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that, where it's just
Yeah.
those silly things are just superficial things, like aren't necessarily a thing, but it's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
What about you, Solo?
I have a lot of things, and I have changed those. Like the bat form, for example. Like, yes, I could choose to turn into a bat. I just don't think that would be my go-to. Again, I'm a military guy, so I'm always tactful. I would never put myself in a vulnerable position. Bats are not that fast, and they can't fly that far without stopping. So like, why would I want to be a bat? Like, so being some large demon creature with bigger wings, kind of like, whatever, that makes more sense. Or like an owl would make more sense than a bat. But I know bats, there's vampiric bats because they bite people or bite creatures, right? So like
There's literally a vampire bat.
Yeah.
I had a joke, but I'm...
Go for it.
There it is.
Oh, you said you wouldn't put yourself in a vulnerable position, but you have, like, thrice offered yourself up to vampires just in this
That's
episode,
fair.
so...
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But is that a vulnerable position?
Isn't that what makes it fun?
Somewhat vulnerable, I guess.
I'm gonna
But
break
then
them,
not?
actually.
No, you're
Vulnerable or submissive?
I mean, your, like, arteries are just out. It's...
You're
not. Your arteries showing.
Arteries are out. Oh god.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe not.
Witness my arteries.
Best pickup line ever. No, I don't know. Yeah, I get what you're saying, though. But I like the idea that... I think one of the things that bugs me is people forget that vampires in some of the lore can change to multiple things. It's not just a bat.
Yeah.
Like, in lore, there are stories of them being cats and other things, too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just...
Ravens.
Boom.
Ravens are cool, yeah. I like that. I like
They
all
are
of that.
really cool.
They're cool.
Unless you get them shot by a beholder. Ronan
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
sacrificed his bird.
Yeah, it just has to get some materials. Again, we could talk about vampires all the time. Like I am very excited about all of those things. But again, there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much
Yeah.
energy that can go in a direction. If I had all the energy in the world, I would be doing campaigns every day of the week and just different storylines and all this crap to get out of my head. But it is fun to kind of envision these different character types and things that we've all enjoyed and kind of making it our own. That's the fun part of being a player. I mean, and even as a DM too, you kind of make it your own, but then you bring your players into it, and all of a sudden that's part of the story and that's part of what's going on. That was a big part of the Realm story, was finding Victor and killing him. And then once they killed him, they traveled to the Shadow Ward to find his castle and kill him in his castle, and that would kill him for good, or so they thought. Slight shot. But there's definitely there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff that's just really fun about all of this, and I think the next time, because we are out of time, I think next time it would be fun to talk about the chemistry and such between vampires and werewolves. Because there's a lot of different perspectives on that, where sometimes the werewolves were just like pets or submissive creatures to the vampires, and then they rebelled, and then there's a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
Because werewolves are also dope. But yes, so we are about done. Everyone, just real quick, tell the people where they can find you, and then we're gonna call it a day.
That you can get me at Valrook on Instagram. I post pictures of nerd stuff, and cosplays things are new now, and I'm doing that. And pretty soon I'll have lovely shiny dice, because I have stuff to make those now, so...
Awesome.
Hi guys, Diane Hall. You can find me at the Pretty DM. You can find me here DMing in about 30 minutes for the Legends of Shoggoth, which is my homebrew world. You can find me on Realms as a lonely cleric. You can find me sometimes on Fridays as a going evil wizard or other characters we'll see in the future. And starting this Saturday, you can find me as a slightly crazed butcher for Vault 42, which I'm very excited about.
And yeah, I'm Eddie Gilbert, otherwise known as your humble discount bard. at Discount Bard for all the various social medias and here on Twitch as well. You can find me here on Wednesdays and for the next couple months on Fridays, and occasionally, you'll see me in Wizards as well as a very shy Dragonborn wizard.
I'm so happy that I kind of brought Saiyan back for Saiyan to continue to live on. Like this,
it's a very different version of Saiyan, but I'm having so much fun
great,
with him.
great grandfather.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still amazing. It's still amazing.
Rook also likes, that's fun. Also, Wizards and Legends of Shao Gal, and eventually all of these vampire things that he's proposing, I will also be in every single one of those.
Yeah. Well, it's just really fun that my players trust me enough to go, and we understand each other and the characters, at least I think we do, enough to where I go completely off the rails and they're totally accepting of it. And like in the moment, I'm like, oh shit, like maybe I should have asked first. Too late. Eddie, is this okay? He's like, yeah, it's awesome. I'm like, oh, okay.
I wouldn't know anything about that either.
Oh, you like it.
I do.
On November 20th, we are doing a 12-hour stream from 3:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Follow up with the next episode of Fox Talks, and then Wizards of Ukador. I will be DMing pretty much all day. You can check that menu down below. I just popped the link in there as well. It's in our Twitch panel. In the Twitch panel, there is a pre-game menu that you can donate items for the players that are playing. The menu next to that shows you which players are playing at what times. It's our entire producer-manager staff that are playing in the games, the ones that were able to make it anyway. And we're going to be going through a pretty crazy dungeon crawl. And it's not just a random dungeon crawl. I never do anything that's random. This is actually part of the world of Ukador, and you'll find out where later. But this is all in attempts to help upgrade our streaming equipment. The computer that I've been using to stream all of our shows is very old, and it's very underpowered. So we're trying to kind of get ahead of the game before it dies, because if it dies, we're dead in the water. So we're trying to upgrade our systems now, and by upgrading the systems, we'll also improve the quality of the streams and all the other things that we're going to be able to add to it as well. So you can go ahead and check that menu down below, and it'll be our nice little fun charity stream. This is Warrior Week for the Wounded Warrior Project, so go ahead and check those guys out. This whole week, there's tons of games going on with our partners over at the Wounded Warrior Project. Our first official event for that, other than our normal streams, is at noon. On Wednesday, we have a panel with our friends over at Game to Grow. And then all day Sunday, there's a bunch of panels and games from the Game to Grow folks. So it's new DMs, new players. I might be able to play in some of the games. I can't even remember. Yes, Vault 42, our open very first episode is 6:30 p.m. Pacific on Saturday, so make sure to catch that. The next episode, the second to last episode of Cantor Chronicles, is on Friday at 5:30 p.m. And of course, Realms on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. All of these dates and all of our stuff are complete up to date on our website, fable42.com. But without further ado, go ahead and type in Bloodsucker, all one word, to enter in our Between Show giveaway, and Diane will pick that winner when she gets to her announcements in the show in about 27 minutes. So I'm going to quickly stop this stream and then start up the timer for Legends of Shao Gal, and we will see you all later.